Indiana football and head coach Curt Cignetti are still working diligently to flip five-star defensive lineman Jalen Brewster from Texas Tech. And if you ask me, the Hoosiers should be the favorite.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day and the nation's #1 sports podcasting network. So thank you so much for making that so. Also, thank you to however you support our show, whether you subscribe on YouTube, you follow us on your audio podcasting platforms, commenting down below on YouTube. That helps us grow tremendously. So thank you so much for doing those things. We have a lot to get to on today's show. Indiana basketball, according to the numbers, still has a chance to make the NCAA tournament. We'll tell you how, we'll tell you why. Plus, Curt Cignetti, he got paid by Indiana as the details have been fully released on what his contract looks like, how it's all broken down. We'll talk about that and why it's a no-brainer for Indiana to pay the man. But we bring up a topic that we've had before, but it seems to be building a little momentum here, and other programs are starting to talk about it too. The idea of flipping five-star defensive lineman Jalen Brewster. If you don't know the name, you should. If you listen and watch this show every day, you do. The five-star defensive lineman from Cedar Hill, Texas. He's one of the biggest and best players in the 2027 class. We talked to Brian Smith, a recruiting expert, about him. You and I have talked about it here on the show. This is a real possibility. Now, he's been committed to Texas Tech since October of last year. And we know what Texas Tech is doing. Right? We know what they're doing in recruiting. We know what they're doing with paying players. We know what they're doing to try and become relevant again. And congratulations to them. That's the world we're in. And it's legal now, so you can do it if you've got the money, and Texas Tech clearly does. But Jalen Brewster is an unbelievable athlete. 6'3", 300 pounds. He moves like a running back. He moves like a linebacker, really. He can do it all. Now, depending on the service you look at, right, you've got On 3, you've got 24/7, you've got all these different ones. He is a top 5 player in the country, no matter where you look. He's the #1 defensive lineman. I think he's the #1 player in the state of Texas. I think he could be rated as the #1 overall player in the class, right? Again, On 3, Rivals, 247, they all have their different ways and rankings and numbers. Just bank on him being a top 5 player in the class, okay? In Indiana, you may ask, well, why are we talking about this guy? If he's been committed to Texas Tech since October, why are we talking about Indiana? Well, the Hoosiers feel confident that we can flip him, and I do too. I feel very confident that this could happen. This is by no means me predicting that it's going to happen, okay? But I do think Indiana is in the running here. The last time we brought this up was because of the comments Jalen Brewster had made, where he said, my commitment is not 100%. It's not solid. It's still kind of open because Texas Tech did not retain their defensive line coach, which is fascinating to me. He had been there for 4 years under the current regime. His contract was up. They let him go. They have recently hired a new defensive line coach there at Texas Tech. Okay, cool. And Jalen Brewster is supposed to go visit and see this guy and talk to this guy and see if they can rekindle the relationship. But when Brewster made the comments like that he was not 100% in, teams like Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas have all jumped back in. Teams that were originally in his recruitment said, interesting. So you're saying there's a chance, and that's where Indiana comes in. Okay, I believe that Indiana is doing everything in its power. I know that Indiana is doing everything in its power to get Jalen Brewster on campus. Again, he's scheduled to visit Texas Tech. As I've seen and heard, he has no other official visits lined up or any sort of thing lined up with other schools. but they're all diligently trying, including your Indiana Hoosiers. And here's my take on all of this. Indiana should be the favorite here. If you're a guy like Jalen Brewster, again, he's in the class of 2027. Indiana already has a top 20 class in 27 and looking to add on to it, and you play defense on the D line, why would you not want to go to Bloomington? Why would you not want to play for Brian Haynes, Pat Kuntz, and the entire organization with Curt Cignetti at the top, who are just churning through defensive players and putting them in the NFL? Did you see what some of the guys just did at the NFL Combine? Why would you not want to play for the most aggressive defense in the country, one that was ranked number 1 overall this season and just won a national championship? And I know what most people will say. Well, yeah, but Texas Tech is paying him the most money. Cool. What has Texas Tech done in recent memory? Yeah, they made the college football playoff this last year. Indiana won it. Why would you not choose Indiana over any of these other programs? Ohio State might be the only one in this conversation that has a legitimate argument to go up against the Hoosiers. And that's just because of longevity and nothing else right now. I think Indiana's a perfect fit for this guy. And my goodness, turn on the film. The dude is a freak. He would absolutely eat in Indiana's defensive scheme. Are you kidding me? Just put him out there. Let him line up wherever the heck he wants to. He plays D-line, but just let him go. Let him. If that dude wants to stand in the middle of the defense with his hands on his knees and line up as a linebacker, let him. I don't care. That's how talented he is. That's how good he is. I think he's one of the smartest players in the class, one of the most athletic players in the class. And when you play high school football at Cedar Hill, Texas, again, he is now coming into his senior season. Right? So the highlights you see are sophomore and junior years. You got to be something special. And Jalen Brewster is. And I believe that Indiana can pull this off. I think we're good enough. I think we've got the facilities, the money, the program, the reputation, the coaches now to where if Jalen Brewster is not 100% and Indiana gets him on campus, I think it's over. I think it's over. I think Indiana can pull this off. And I'm not worried about Texas Tech and their money. I'm not worried about Ohio State and their reputation. I'm definitely not worried about Oregon, where they haven't done anything. And any of the other teams that feel like they have a chance. They don't. I think if anybody has the best odds to flip Jalen Brewster, it is your Indiana Hoosiers, who will not give up until this thing is done. And again, he's a 2027, so you have more time. And this continues to get spicy because just over the past few days, these other teams are really starting to ramp up these conversations. But when it comes down to it, you're not going to out-recruit Indiana. Not right now. A team that continues to rise, grow, and be at the top of the college football world. You have that to hold over everybody's head, and you get to use that on one of the nation's best players in 2027. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, you know a way to get a top 5 player in recruiting? You know a way to get kids to come to your school? Pay your head coach and tell him he's not going anywhere. That's what happened with Curt Cignetti. Indiana football paid the man. He's got $100 million coming his way. We'll break down the contract and tell you why it was the right move right after this, here on this edition of Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live event. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move right along with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply all that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by the people. You're no longer a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, welcome back into this episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. Again, make sure that you Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you are commenting on our shows on every episode. It helps us grow. I love to see what you have to say and what you think about everything and your thoughts, whether you agree, disagree, or maybe have an extra point that I missed. I'd love to see what you have to say in the YouTube comments. Also, be sure you follow us on your audio podcasting platforms as well. And we continue talking football. And this is also a topic that's not necessarily new. We just have more information. It's Indiana football and IU itself paying Curt Cignetti. And we knew that this happened. We knew that he got his third contract extension in just 2 years of coaching in Bloomington, which is pretty good, right? That's a pretty good testament to how good you are as a head coach, how successful you've been, and how much they love you here in Bloomington. But now we've got the details, and it's pretty wild to see how this thing is all broken down. He's going to get paid $500,000 in a base salary. So every single year, no matter what, he's going to make $500,000. He also will have a $1 million annual retention bonus. So every year that he doesn't lose his job, he will get paid another $1 million. And then he will start with $13.025 million and get raises from then on out. So here's how it all kind of layers, okay? This upcoming year, in 2026, he will make just over $13 million, $13.025 million, okay? He will then make $13.075 million, then 13.1, and it goes up from there. 13.125, 13.175, 13.225, and it goes all the way up to nearly $13.4 million a year. That is his annual salary. Okay. He is a top 3 paid coach in the country. The only 2 that he is making less than is Lane Kiffin at LSU, which still sounds weird to say to me, and Georgia with Kirby Smart. All right, Lane Kiffin at LSU and Kirby Smart at Georgia. And what's baffling to me is that there are people who still don't understand why. All guaranteed, by the way. $100 million plus guaranteed contract for Curt Cignetti. That is a ton of money. It is more money than you or I will ever see in our lifetimes, probably, right? And I understand that all of that being fully guaranteed, that's where I have a little bit of concern. But the idea of paying the guy, I'm not concerned with at all. The idea that he just won a national championship, okay, at a school that when he showed up, historically had the most losses in the nation. That deserves a pretty good pay. And Indiana's clearly got the money. That's what I want to kind of stress here is Indiana wouldn't agree to pay it if they didn't have it. And Indiana wouldn't agree to pay it if it wasn't beneficial, right? Indiana's not going to pay the guy $13 million if they're not making at least that, if not more, off of him. Right. And so now that Indiana is not just relevant, they are the school in college football, right? We are the team, the school that people want on their TV networks. They want us on their radio networks. They want us on their website. They want every piece of Indiana and Curt Cignetti that they can get a hold of. And Indiana is benefiting from that. The Hoosiers as a program and IU itself, right? The school, the university itself, is making so much damn money that they're paying the guy $13 million a year. That should tell you, just think about why they're doing it and the fact that they are able to do it. That should tell you everything you need to know. That should tell you how valuable he is and why they don't want him to go anywhere. Could you get away with paying him $10 million a year? Yeah, probably. But then there would always be a caveat of, well, he could leave. Somebody else could offer him more. Somebody else could pay him more. There's only two coaches in America making more money than him. LSU stupidly paying Lane Kiffin that amount of money, and Georgia paying Kirby Smart that amount of money. Because guess what? When Kirby Smart got to Georgia, he elevated them. They were a 9-10 win team every single year with, who was it? Mark Richt, right? That's what they were. Kirby Smart comes over after coaching for Nick Saban in Alabama on the defensive side of the football, and he starts winning national championships. And they said, cool, let's pay the guy. A, because he's good, B, because he wins, and C, we don't want him to go anywhere. That's what Georgia did, and that's what Indiana's doing too. I still can't wrap my head around LSU and Lane Kiffin, but whatever. I've said it once, I'll say it 100 times, and I don't think it'll work. But, maybe the PR stunt will get them what they're looking for. Indiana paid Curt Cignetti because he wins, but they also paid him because they don't want him to leave. And he doesn't want to. He's made that very clear. But we just saw last season that big teams and programs are going to call him off the hook until you make him untouchable. That's what this was. This was, thank you, Cignetti. Please don't leave us. We love you and want you to be here forever. We know you want to be here. We want you to be here too. Let's come to an agreement and let's make this thing happen. That's exactly what they did. And it's smart. It's the right move. I don't think any IU fan that I've at least seen has disagreed with the idea to pay him. You can have your thoughts on for how long, right? It's through 2033, right? So as we sit here, that's another 7 years. Will he win another national championship between now and then? Who knows? Will he drop off and the team fall off like off a cliff? I don't know. Could be. But man, for me, for a person that didn't have to sign the check, $100 million to win a national championship, that's a little steep. But for a program that's never even sniffed it, sounds pretty good to me. So I love it. And to tie this into the recruiting, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, right, with Jalen Brewster and things like that, you now have solidified what your head coach will be and who it will be. There are no questions when it comes to recruiting now. Curt Cignetti can walk in and say, you're committing to me. You're committing to my program, my standards, my way. You don't have to worry about me going anywhere. You don't have to worry about me leaving or bailing on you, right? I am at Indiana. If you're a 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 recruit, you can have pure confidence for the next 5 years that you will play for Curt Cignetti. And that is such a powerful tool nowadays. Because how many coaches in college football can truly say that when they're sitting in the living room? How many coaches right now can sit in the living room with a recruit and their families and say, if you commit to me, I will be your coach the entire time you're here, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Whatever that looks like, I will be your coach from start to finish. At the top of my head, I'm thinking Ryan Day. Since he won a natty, he's fine. I know there were obviously threats of him losing his job if he didn't win it all, but he did, right? Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, maybe Dan Lanning, maybe, but I'm still convinced he could leave that job. He'd be stupid to do it, but I think he would if a Alabama came open or something like that. So I'm not even confident in saying Dan Lanning. I think Ryan Day and Kirby Smart. I think that's about it. You're telling me that that's not a recruiting tool that Curt Cignetti and Indiana want to have in their bag moving forward? Sounds like one you'd want to use to me, right? So again, I think there's not a whole lot of people arguing that the raise isn't a good idea. I understand if you think it's too much money, but for me, man, if Indiana's got it and they're willing to spend it and they're making it back and it keeps Curt Cignetti happy, I think it's the way to go. So football is doing just fine right now for Indiana. Basketball, on the other hand, not going the way we want it to go. But apparently, the Hoosiers still have a chance somehow to make the NCAA tournament. We'll tell you about that coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, that inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. The skills, the experience, the location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that if you need a little convincing, this is what you need to know. In the minute or so that I'm talking to you right now, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show right now, you're going to get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on Locked On Hoosiers. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. College basketball, it's nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay that you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, season finales we're going to have coming up this weekend, right? You can mix all the spreads and the totals, player props, do whatever you want to do, right? Including for Indiana, got a game against Minnesota on Wednesday, Ohio State coming up next weekend. You can do all of that, right? You can go safe, go bold, do whatever you want to do. It is your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. All right, final segment here on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And we flipped to basketball, and I know that there was a bracketology that probably came out today. Of course, recorded this last night on Monday, so bracketology had not been yet released by Joe Lunardi and ESPN, but ESPN did put out a thing talking about percentages and teams that are locks, teams that should be in, teams that are probably not in. And you look at what the Big Ten has right now: Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Wisconsin are all locks, according to ESPN, to make the NCAA tournament. 3 more teams, that's 6 teams that are locks to make the tournament. They say 3 more of them should be in, with Iowa, UCLA, don't know if I agree with that, and Ohio State, thanks to their win over Purdue. Then there's 2 teams that have work to do: USC and your Indiana Hoosiers. And I think that that's probably right. I think it is right that Indiana is a team that has work to do. Can we make the tournament? Yeah, maybe. A win over Minnesota in the midweek's not going to do it, but a win over Ohio State, which is a quad 1 game, a team that should be in the NCAA tournament, yeah, that would probably do it, right? For head coach Darren DeVries and the Indiana Hoosiers. But if you lose either one of these, you're done, including the game this week that would be tomorrow against Minnesota, because you lost a horrific game to Northwestern. You blew your chances against Michigan State, and you've just gone down the wrong path, right? You've lost 4 games in a row, 3 of them to good teams, 1 of them to a poor team. And according to ESPN, your chances of making the NCAA tournament is down to a 45% chance. Yeah, that sounds like work to do for me. Your resume is not that good. It's outside the top 50 in national resume average, according to ESPN, which is 10th in the conference, by the way. For a team that has a win over Purdue, a team that has a win over Wisconsin, right? Some of those teams that are locks to make the NCAA tournament, right? You lost to Michigan, lost to Illinois, split with Purdue, lost to Michigan State, lost to Nebraska, and then beat Wisconsin. You could get one more win. You beat UCLA, who is supposed to be a tournament team. You got embarrassed by Iowa, who's supposed to be a tournament team. And you've got another chance with Ohio State, who is supposed to be a tournament team. But man, isn't it exhausting to sit here at this point and talk about what Indiana could do or has the chance to do? It's exhausting for me because Indiana has had their chances. We have had chances to put this conversation to bed. Man, we could be coming into this week of, man, it doesn't really matter what happens. Man, you might be able to boost the seed line maybe. Man, you might be able to move up a little bit, but man, we're going to be in the tournament. We're going to be a 6 seed. We're going to have a chance to make a run. No, not even close. Indiana's lucky to be in the play-in game in Dayton, Ohio on a Tuesday night. That's where Indiana's at right now, which IU fans can make that a home game there at UD Arena, but you get my point here. ESPN says the Hoosiers still have a chance, but it's slim. And again, I don't know where Indiana's in bracketology right now. We'll talk about that more on tomorrow's show in previewing the Minnesota game. But my guess is that you're out. My guess is that you're out of the tournament, and you've got to win 2 down the stretch to have a chance. And we've said it so many times, and I'll say it again, I don't trust trying to build your resume in the Big Ten tournament. The committee has proven they don't care. The committee has proven they don't watch. They turn it off. They complete their bracket at the end of the regular season, that being this coming Sunday, and they're done. They go on vacation. They put their toes in the sand and they clink margarita glasses and have a good time. So why would you play? Why would you care? Why would you want to take any sort of doubt into the Big Ten tournament? It's worthless. The Big Ten tournament's worthless. The SEC tournament is worthless. You do not want your tournament fate to be in the hands of the committee going into your Big Ten conference tournament. You do not want it because it does not go your way. And what confidence do we have in Indiana to actually go on a run in the Big Ten tournament, even if it did matter? None. We have no confidence. This team, I don't know if they're done or not. The effort was there on Sunday for the most part. You just can't execute. And you couldn't make shots and get stops when you needed it. So the numbers say you're still alive. I just don't know. And I said yesterday that it would be an embarrassment for Indiana to miss the tournament. I think that's still the case. I do. I think this program has a higher standard than that. I think we were sold that from Darren DeVries in year 1 with the roster that they built, the money they spent on this roster too. And I still believe that to be the case. But man, something's got to change. And it starts tomorrow with Minnesota. And we'll talk about that game against Minnesota on tomorrow's show, bracketology, and a whole lot more. So thank you so much for being here, being a part of this program, or this particular show and program, right? This community, Locked On, everything you do to support our show. Again, thank you for doing all of that. We are done for today, but we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.